Hello, everyone, and welcome. A very special welcome today to all our friends over at RWG Publishing. It is great to have you with us. Today, we are diving deep into something it's basically part of our human operating system, storytelling. And our guide for this journey is The Storyteller's Handbook by the brilliant Bill Vincent. Think of it as a manual for building stories that don't just grab your attention, but really stick with you. So, let's get into it. Bill Vincent just hits the nail on the head right from the start with this quote. What he's saying here is that storytelling isn't a one-way street. It's not a performance for a passive audience. It's a partnership. The author lays down the blueprint, right? But it's us, the readers, who walk through the house, who furnish the rooms with our own feelings and experiences, and who ultimately make that structure a home. This idea that we're building a story together, that's the key to everything we're about to unpack. So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to explore the big why, the art of storytelling itself. Then we'll open up the Storyteller's Toolkit and look at the essential gear. After that, we'll focus on breathing life into characters, firing up the narrative engine, and finally, we'll talk about taking that messy first draft and polishing it into something special. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. Let's tackle that huge question, why? Really, why are stories so ridiculously important to us as a species? It goes so much deeper than just killing time or being entertained. It's something primal. The handbook makes such a great point here. Stories are basically humanity's first ever hard drive. Think about it. If I give you a list of facts and figures, chances are you'll forget most of them by tomorrow. But if I wrap those same facts in a story with characters and conflict and emotion, suddenly it sticks. Our brains are literally wired to latch onto narratives. It was our original technology for passing down wisdom, for making sense of a crazy, chaotic world, and for connecting with each other on a truly human level. All right, so now that we've got a handle on why stories matter so much, the next logical question is, what are they actually made of? What makes them tick? It's time to open up that toolkit and look at the absolute, non-negotiable, foundational elements every storyteller has to master. And we have to start with the heart and soul of any story, the character. These are the people we follow, the reason we care, the reason we invest our emotions. A great plot with a boring character it's just a sequence of events. The handbook really stresses that a compelling character feels like a real complicated person. They've got hopes, dreams, flaws, and maybe a weird little habit, like a world-class chef who secretly loves cheap instant noodles. It's those little human details that make us connect with them and root for them. Next up, we've got the plot. This is the what happens next that keeps us turning the pages. But it's so much more than just a list of events. It's a chain reaction. It's cause and effect. This happened because that happened, which then caused this other thing to happen. That's what creates momentum and suspense. It's the difference between a random walk in the woods and a compelling journey on a clearly marked, if dangerous, path. And of course, where does all this action take place? The setting. But here's the thing. The handbook makes it clear that the setting is never just a pretty backdrop. You should think of it as another character in the story. A dark, stormy night isn't just weather. It's a mood. It's an obstacle, it's a personality. A well-realized setting grounds the story. It makes the world feel tactile and real, and it can even influence how the characters behave. It's not just wallpaper, it breathes. Now, when we talk about plot, the storyteller has this really powerful choice. How are you going to arrange time? The most straightforward way is a linear narrative. You start at the beginning, you go through the middle, you get to the end. A to B to C. Simple, powerful, builds momentum. But then, there's the nonlinear approach. This is where you can really play. By jumping around in time with flashbacks or hinting at the future with foreshadowing, you can build incredible layers of mystery, suspense, and meaning. Sometimes, when you tell a part of the story is just as important as what you tell. Okay, so we've got our basic toolkit. Now let's zoom in on what the handbook calls the absolute, undeniable heart of any story, bringing our characters to life. Because let's be honest, without characters that we truly care about, even the most explosive plot just feels like empty noise. Right, so it's easy to say a character needs wants and needs, but how do we actually figure those out? Where does that inner fire, that motivation, actually come from? How do we go from a cool concept for a character to a believable person an audience will invest in? This is where the handbook gives us this wonderfully practical step-by-step method. It's not about waiting for some magical bolt of lightning. It's about doing the work. You start by writing their life story, just a quick biography. Then you pinpoint the key life-altering events,
that first major success, that devastating failure, that moment that changed everything. And here's the magic step. You connect that past to their present. Why are they so desperate for that promotion today? It's because of something that happened 10 years ago. Why are they terrified of getting close to people? The answer is in their history. It's this process that turns a flat cutout into a living, breathing person.
And honestly, what we've just covered is just scratching the surface. The handbook goes so much deeper, talking about character arcs, finding their unique voice, building believable relationships. It's a gold mine. If creating characters that people will remember for years is something you're passionate about, I really can't recommend the full guide enough. You can find the link to grab your copy on Amazon. So you've got this amazing three-dimensional character living in a vivid world. Now what? Well, a story about a perfectly happy person whose life is going great is pretty boring. You need to throw some trouble their way. You need conflict. The handbook calls it the engine of the narrative, and that's exactly what it is. It's the fuel that creates momentum and raises the stakes. And conflict really boils down to two main types. You've got your external conflict, that's the hero versus the villain, the climber versus the mountain, the lawyer versus a corrupt system. It's the visible, outward struggle. But then you have the internal conflict, and this is often where the real magic happens. This is the war waging inside the character, their ambition fighting against their conscience, their duty clashing with their desires. The absolute best stories, they masterfully weave these two together, so the fight on the outside is a perfect reflection of the battle on the inside.
Now, every story that starts needs to end, and a powerful ending does so much more than just stop. It has to feel satisfying. The handbook gives us a fantastic checklist for a perfect landing. You need resolution. You've got to tie up those main conflicts. You need to show change. How have our characters grown from this whole ordeal? You need to give the audience a sense of closure, a feeling that the journey was complete. And sometimes the most memorable endings leave just a little bit of meaningful ambiguity, a final question that keeps you thinking about the story long after it's over.
We are in the home stretch now. You've built your world, you've created your people, you've dragged them through the fire of conflict. You have a first draft. Congratulations! But, as any writer on the planet will tell you, the journey isn't over. In some ways, the real work is just about to begin. It's time to refine your craft. A core truth the handbook drills down on is this: writing is rewriting. It's not about getting it perfect the first time. It lays out this fantastic three-step process for editing. First, you do a structural edit. This is the big picture, the 30,000-foot view. Does the foundation of the story work? Is the pacing right? Then you dive in for the line edit, going sentence by sentence, polishing the language until it sings. But that final step, seeking feedback, this one is maybe the most important and the bravest. You have to share your work. A fresh pair of eyes can see things you never will, and that perspective is absolutely priceless. And this quote just brings everything we've talked about full circle. It's a powerful reminder that what we're doing here, this craft of storytelling, it isn't trivial, it's fundamental. When we sit down to write a story, we are participating in one of the oldest and most important human traditions, the act of making meaning, of preserving wisdom, and of connecting with one another across time and space. So with all these tools and this perspective in our back pocket, the explainer ends with a question that's not for me to answer, but for you. What's the story that only you can tell? What experiences have shaped you? What wisdom do you have to pass on? What story is inside you, just waiting for its moment? Look, the ideas we've explored today from the handbook are an incredible launchpad. If any of this has sparked your imagination, I really, truly encourage you to take the next step. Begin your journey today. Get your copy of The Storyteller's Handbook, Crafting Compelling Narratives by visiting the link on Amazon. I wish you the best of luck with the amazing stories you're about to tell. Thanks for listening to the Deep Dive podcast.